Warning: this reading contains subject matter that may be disturbing or distressing to many. Listener discretion is highly advised.
Waking to bedsheets covered in wet streaks of crimson, and what appear to be maroon specks of an unknown substance was initially quite startling. Just hours prior, the material had been a pristine white. Currently, they looked like they had been used to nurse a victim of a stabbing back to health. If they looked this awful, then staring at myself in the bathroom mirror sent a chill down my spine. I nearly cried as I examined myself. My own ivory coat was speckled with blood and scabs. Not an inch of my body as it had been just a week prior. I was hideous, disgusting, grotesque. I don't know how or why it started. All I knew was it refused to depart. Perhaps it was something I'd eaten, or maybe it was a product I'd been too enthusiastic to use. Or was I suddenly allergic to something that was plaguing me? It began as disturbing red blemishes on my forelegs. It was just a touch irritated, so I rubbed some balm on it and went about my day. What a mistake that proved to be. Days later, it spread over every inch of my coat. Flames. It was as if I was constantly on fire, and all the lotions and salves I slathered on myself did little to aid my plight. Slipping into the cool water of a bath sent a jolt of pain into every cut and gash that decorated me. The first attempt, I'd actually leapt out of the water, but I forced myself to endure the pain. Soap was an even worse source of despair. But I refused to walk around smelling of rotten, mangled flesh. The scented soap that dissolved into the water made it feel as if I was immersed in acid. The feeling made me want nothing more than to tear into every inch of my skin. It turns out gentle scratching is quite the oxymoron. And so, after weeks of trying solutions, after weeks of hiding away at home, after weeks of suffering, I was forced to schedule an appointment with the best doctor I could find.
I'm very sorry, Miss Rarity, but we really don't know what the problem is.
My heart sank when I was informed that I'd be getting no real help. I'd expected it, but I still hoped. Is there nothing you might be able to suggest? I nearly cried as I pled with him, doing my best not to start scratching as the stress of the situation began to make me feel 10 times worse.
I suppose you should just keep doing what you're doing.
He sighed as he looked down at the clipboard he held.
Take care of your skin and try to eat well. Maybe try not to stress out so much.
Thank you, Doctor. Leaving the hospital was especially difficult. The cool interior of the building was swiftly replaced by the heat of Celestia's day, and with it, pinpricks of discomfort peppered my body. I had to get home quickly. The more my body perspired, the more I felt the urge to scratch. Thus, the worse my condition became. Under the intense kiss of the Sun Princess's greatest treasure, I clenched my teeth and stumbled my way back home. I wanted nothing more than to sequester myself into a cold room and sit there, motionless. Movement hurt, heat hurt, scratching hurt, living hurt. Please just let me die. At this point, it would be the sweetest release. I laid in my push bed, the discomfort slowly becoming unbearable. I contemplated getting up. or at the very least tossing the blanket off myself. But both sounded like poor options. How long had this mess truly persisted? Months? Years? It felt as far back as I could recall. Should I try to adjust myself? Or remain still? Why was it so darn hot? Why was I so hot? It felt like I might be in a sauna at the spa. But the ambient temperature definitely wasn't that high. If I didn't concentrate my all on breathing, I risk a wave of discomfort washing over me entirely. They would always start out as a slight tingle somewhere on my body. Foreleg, my cheek, or maybe my withers. In an instant, it would begin to crawl to other parts of me, like a trail of fire ants that couldn't be expunged. Unfortunately, even if I stayed motionless, the heat would eventually become unbearable, and my entire being would ignite. I cautiously slid my hopes over to the offending spot in the hopes that it would satiate my desire for relief. It didn't. It never worked. It was merely the first step in the degradation of the night. With each movement, a sharper, more demanding ache replaced the initial one. Foolishly, like every time before, I pressed harder and harder. The greater the ache, the harsher my motions. The vicious scraping of hoof against flesh always felt absolutely delightful, if only for a moment. I'd come to regret it in the morning, but just then it felt absolutely divine. As the falling of dry, flaky skin gradually gave way to a moist, slick feeling, I knew I'd pushed too hard. But in the darkness, I pretended nothing was wrong. I could make believe only for so long. Once the acrid scent of dead or rotten flesh began, I knew I'd gone off the deep end. Falling asleep in a pile of your own expired skin is one of the most unpleasant feelings in the world. The worst part, I knew tomorrow. I knew the next day after that. They would all be the same. I would wake to bloody, filthy sheets. My body would be covered in lesions and blemishes, cuts and blood. I'd take a painful bath and have a horrid day. This was my life now. There was no escape. This was my own hell.
Thank you for listening, every pony. Feel free to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to know when I post more content like this. Feel free to follow me on TikTok, Patreon, X, and Discord. Links in the description. And should you want to join my new nation, feel free to join the Shade Hollow, my Discord server. Good night, every pony.